Good morning, everyone. Where to start? What to think? How to organize things that can't even be spoken. It's a little bit of a challenge sometimes. Let's go with Hafiz. He's a good starting point for me always. I shared this poem last week with the Santa Barbara folks and just filled ourselves with light from it. Hafiz says, "Light will someday split you open. Even if your life is now a cage, little by little you will turn into stars. Little by little you will turn into this whole sweet, amorous universe. Love will surely burst you wide open into an unfettered, booming new galaxy. You will become so free in a wonderful, secret, and pure love that flows from a conscious, one-pointed, infinite light. Even then, my dear, the beloved will have fulfilled just a fraction of a promise he wrote upon your heart. For a divine seed, the crown of destiny, is hidden and sown on an ancient, fertile plain that you hold the title to. Oh, look again within yourself, for I know you were once that elegant host to all the marvels in creation, when your soul begins to ever bloom and laugh and spin in that eternal ecstasy. Oh, little by little, you will turn into God." You know, Ramakrishna says that wherever you see excellence in the arts or theater or whatnot, that you can know that he is there also. And it's one of those things that I've really been enjoying lately. I spent a week ago in the Rocky Mountains camping, and I've shared this with quite a few people because it was really a life-transforming experience being up there and just seeing more beauty than what I could take in through my senses, to actually reach the limit of my sense perception and to not be able to understand what I was looking at, not be able to absorb, to really feel how small five senses are, how inadequate they are at seeing the divine, at seeing God. And how this infinity that is the divine, this divine moment, this presence of God, we only have access to it if we're going through mind and through body, as we often believe ourselves to be. How small that is, 5 tiny openings through which this infinite divinity has to come into our mind. And then the mind scrambling to see the differences and to put them in their boxes and to categorize them and then find relationships between them as the mind desperately tries to reconstruct a unity, a wholeness out of them, out of all these disparate pieces of information. I was looking at the artwork of a Japanese artist, photographer actually, named Hiroshoshi Sugimoto. And he writes as he says, as he's talking about his art, that he remembers a trip to the ocean as a child. And on the way to the ocean, the road went through this large tunnel in a mountain and then came out the other side. And there, for the first time, is this infinite expanse of the ocean in front of him. And at that moment, he became an artist because he saw this meeting of two infinities, the meeting of himself with his interior experience, his interior world, and then this magnificent spread of the ocean in front of him. And he looked out and he saw that curving horizon, and he realized that he will never be able to see anything on the earth farther than that. So even in this representation of this infinity, this ocean that we often think of as being a symbol, he saw the limit of the senses. He saw how far he could reach. And then he saw beyond that the infinity of space. But even in the infinity of space, there's darkness. The limit of light, the limit of our eyes' ability to see. We see that in that new telescope they put up there, where they took a picture of dark space And within that dark space were billions of galaxies more, multi-billions and trillions of suns more than what we can see. But in the limit of the senses, we see only the darkness, no matter how far we go. He says that he felt himself subsumed in this infinity of the sky. He says he stood there staring at it even as a child and understood that we live at the meeting point of our external and internal infinities. That in this material world we have that horizon of knowledge, that limit, even as far and large as it seems, that place where the senses simply can't go anymore. You can't see all of the stars at once. You can't experience the beauty of the divine at once. You can only take small little bites. That this external world always has its limit, always has the boundary of the box. It's coming to the knowledge of this limit through the senses and this limit through the mind that the sages, those initial rishis, realized that the answer can't possibly lay out there. It can't possibly be a sum of anything external, that it had to go inward, that somehow the senses themselves were the bottleneck through which this internal infinity, this internal fullness, is manifested in the limits of an external world. Swami Vivekananda writes a poem called To a Friend, and in that poem he says, the paths of yoga and of sense enjoyment, the life of the householder and the sannyas, devotion, worship, and earning riches, vows, tyaga, and austerities severe, I have seen through them all, and what have I known? Life is only a cup of Tantalus. The nobler is your heart, know for certain, the more must be your share of misery. So he's getting us to understand the limitation and really the fact that the purer the heart becomes and the better you become of standing aside, getting the ego diminished and out of the way, so that the love which is your life, the love which is this moment, the love which is everything that we've ever experienced, can flow out unhindered, unbroken by ego, undivided. He says that in this world, all of these things together, even the things that we hold dear, our churches and our temples and our prayers and our practices and our swamis and our devotees, he says, I've seen through them all, and what have I known? Have known that there's not one jot of happiness to be garnered in this world. The cup of Tantalus, I had to look up. I'd heard it before. I didn't know what it was, but it's this little trick cup, if you don't know, that within it, it's ancient. I mean, the ancient Greeks talked about this. The Tantalus himself was cursed by the gods to stand in a pond of water up to his neck and to always be thirsty. And these fruits hanging down, beautiful, ripe, delicious-looking fruits hanging down from a tree right in front of him. But any time he would dip himself to drink from the water line would recede. And any time he would reach for the fruits, they would recede out of his grasp. And it seems like a negative perspective. Of course, it is a torturous perspective if you think that anything that you need or want lays outside. The cup of Tantalus is called the cup of greed also. And what it is if you fill the cup above a certain level, it activates a siphon that's hidden in a small dome in the middle, and it drains the cup completely, so that you can never fill the cup. You can never have a full cup. And it's the real symbol that Vivekananda sees here of the world of the senses. This world out here is never going to be fixed. It's never going to be made perfect according to the itinerary of mind or ego. That it's never going to satisfy. That no matter how many times you eat your favorite food, you're going to want more, unless you give yourself permission to gorge on it. I learned that when I was 18. I got a job at Winchell's Donuts. And the first thing the manager told me when I got there was, your first question, of course, getting a job in a donut shop is, can I eat them? And the manager said, you are welcome to have as many donuts as often as you like, whenever you want. And I thought, thank you, Jesus. What a beautiful opportunity. It has now been literally 40 years since I've enjoyed a donut. The master knew this trick, He also had Mathur fill a room up with all kinds of sweets for him. And he went in and he locked himself into this room full of sweets, and he just ate and ate and ate and ate and ate, so that his mind would see the nature of this world, that you cannot reach your joy, you cannot reach your bliss through the senses in this world. That if you do gorge on it like that, it'll turn to sickness, it'll turn to displeasure, it'll turn to aversion. I don't want another donut. I don't even want to smell another donut. But that if you think that it's yours and you take just little bits at a time, no matter how many times you do that, you're going to want more. And if you keep going after the more, you start becoming a connoisseur. And suddenly this chocolate, which was Hershey's, isn't good enough anymore. Now it has to be Belgian, and it has to be made at a certain factory, and it has to be designed by a certain, confectioner. There was a wonderful chocolate shop in San Francisco called Henry something or others. Anyway, it got ruined because Hershey's bought it. But he made all of his own chocolates, and he used to make these intricate, beautiful sculptures out of chocolate, these flower vases with roses and tulips, and he would do them in front. His workshop was right there in front of everyone, so you could see him dipping his balloon edge into the chocolate to make the petal for the flower that he was working on. But just to say that this world is always pulling you and always promising you, but never giving to you. It's never enough. You will always be hungry. You will always be thirsty. And if for a moment you forget that hunger and thirst, you can know it's going to return to you. So it's a matter of going beyond this. He says in his poem Continuous, "Thou large-hearted lover unselfish, know, there is no room in this sordid world for thee. For far, however far, you may travel, mounted on the brilliant mental car, 'tis the same ocean of the samsar, happiness and misery whirling on." This beautiful idea here that I'm very excited about. I boldened it here. Mounted on that brilliant mental car. What does that mean? That means that you're riding this body-mind. You're riding a mind, and the mind is presenting to you all of this, which is nothing more than a reflection of that divinity within you. That all of your desire out there is when you recognize yourself in your purest essence being reflected back, and you're looking for that sense of immortality. You're looking for that sense of all-powerfulness. You're looking for that sense of total fulfillment, of real love, of someone who will care for you like Prince Charming. Someone who will never lack in what you need. And he says that you feel this way because you are mounted on this brilliant mental car. You're mounted on this mind, which is always telling you stories about who you are, about what you need, about what you like, about what looks good, where to go, when to get there, what to become, what you should be. And we get all engaged in 1,000 stories of mind, 1,000 stories about who we are. And like Tantalus, not realizing that everything we perceive, that everything that we think, that every idea that we have, all of them is just an array of thoughts, an array of thinking. And still thinking that because they form ideas of form and color and texture in our minds, that somehow they have a reality. But every time we grab, what we get is only another thought, another idea. The cup of Tantalus from this brilliant mental car, this ocean of samsar, where it's a closed circuit, And the scriptures in the Bhagavad Gita telling us that the true self, that you, that one who is mounted on this brilliant mental car, who comes before mind and before body, that you are the source of everything here that you see. You are this light. He goes on in his hymn of creation, one mass, devoid of form, name, and color, timeless, devoid of time past and future, spaceless, voiceless, boundless, devoid of all, where rests hushed even speech of negation. From thence down flows the river causal, wearing the form of desire, radiant, its heaving waters angrily roaring the constant roar, I am, I am. In that ocean of desire limitless appear shining waves countless, infinite. Oh, of what power manifold they are, of what forms myriad, of what repose, of what movements varied, who can reckon? In it arise and reside what beings, quick with life, dull and lifeless, unnumbered, and pleasure, pain, disease, birth, and death. Verily the sun is he, his ray. Nay, the sun is he, and he is the ray. This wonderful poem of the nature of creation, it's only beautiful from one perspective, and that's the perspective of the poet, the one standing outside of this tumultuous waves of desire, of pain and pleasure grinding down numerous beings from one life to the next. You know, that terrifying vision that Arjuna had of Krishna in his universal form, that gnashing of teeth. Every death is a body caught between the teeth of the divine, just devouring. That the divine creates, sustains, and then destroys continuously over and over. And you and I, not understanding, not knowing that we in fact are the poet, standing aside and watching this beauty and terror, watching this marvel of creation and destruction, to stand there and to see it and forget that we are at the ocean's edge, and to find ourselves in the middle with these waves of terror coming and dismantling our lives, tearing down our dreams, boring us to tears at times, exciting us to ecstasies at others, always looking for that calmness of the poet that we intuit inside but have forgotten, always intuiting that peace, that wonder that stands before the creation, before the mind, in a sacred reverence and silence as all of this crashing cacophony of being is happening in front of him. The sum total of this is what the poet sees, what the artist sees. Hiroshi Sugimoto, the one who went to the beach as a child and saw the meaning of these infinities and began to explore with the boundary between the limited and the unlimited and to try and find it. He decided another way to do this, fascinating, this is why I love the mind of an artist. He went to these fancy movie houses that were still standing around the world, you know, these old-fashioned ones with the ornate, beautiful interiors and the giant screens. And you can see it down here. What is this one down the street here next to Jimmy Kimmel's place? I can't remember. But anyway, the Empire or something. No, next to the Egyptian. What is it? El Capitan, there it is, that's the one. I had a good fortune, and I think it was a good fortune, to go to a movie there a few months ago. I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, there was this big curtain show before the movie started with these lights and this glitter and these flashings, and I even put it in my vlog because I was just overwhelmed by this effort on the part of the theater, this grand show before the movie even started. Well, Hiroshi decided to go and to take a camera, black and white camera, and to set it up in the balcony of these theaters and to leave the shutter open for the entire length of the movie. And so he does this, and the pictures are gorgeous because it captures around the screen all of the beautiful detail of a theater in the dark. But the wonder of it all is that every screen is bright, luminous, white light. That the summary of every movie is a glorious, luminous white. And I thought, what a beautiful summary of life. that all in this ocean of craziness, this ocean of pains and sufferings, of joys and ecstasies, that the sum total of your life is light. The sum total of your life is illumination. Eckhart Tolle explains a spiritual experience he has, or describes an experience that he had this way. I opened my eyes. The first light of dawn was filtering through the curtains. Without any thought, I felt, I knew that there is infinitely more light than what we realize. That soft luminosity filtering through the curtains was love itself. This is one of my favorite, I call it an illustration because I don't see light yet as love. I haven't learned that as Eckhart had learned it here or was seeing it here. But it's a thought and an understanding that I've taken a lot of comfort in. You know, to know that there's always light. There's always love. And to look at these lights and to sit there and contemplate their nature as being love, that light and love are the same thing. Where do you need to go to look for light, for love? Know that love, the love of divinity, surrounds you all the time. Even at night, as I laid on the driveway in high school in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the cool of the desert air, but the warmth of the day-heated driveway, with my friends looking up at this infinite expanse of stars, of suns, and just contemplating and talking about these things with each other as kids, and coming always reaching for you, some of it coming from millions, maybe billions of years ago, when God's love first started from that distant star to travel and meet your eyes. And to get lost in that kind of thinking, that kind of knowing, to feel that kind of, counted it, the entire world, nay, the entire universe, shrank itself before his eyes into a single ray of the sun. That he saw this enormous universe shrink down to a single ray of light, knowing that it was within him. When Vivekananda says, Alameda, I am not in Alameda, Alameda is in me, it's a call to remember that all of this reflection, all of this love, all of this light is consciousness. That's the nature of it. And all of it starts its journey from here, from inside of your shrine, within this temple where the divine love manifests as your life, projected on the screen of your mind, as you wander through your mind, thinking that it's the world, thinking that it's a universe, thinking that it's infinite in itself. But it's only consciousness reflected on a screen of mind. And you have always been and will always be the poet at the edge, watching this infinity, seeing this birth, this life, and this destruction, thinking that you're in it. But when you come to understand the nature of it is simply love, simply an expression of that eternal self within you, mapped onto a mind through the filter of 5 small senses, trying to create a unity that cannot be contained in the mind, telling a story that cannot be contained in individual frames, but will always be a sum of luminosity, of light, and of love. In Volume 8, Vivekananda gives 6 lessons on Raja Yoga. And here he talks about how is it that we gather our knowledge together so that we can see this luminous light as its summary in the mind. He says the easiest way to get hold of the mind is to sit quiet and let it drift where it will for a while. Hold fast to the idea. So even in that drifting, hold this idea, this space in poet space, let's say, separate, apart from the mind. Hold an idea as you're watching the ever-changing mind. Hold fast to the idea, I am the witness watching my mind drifting. The mind is not I. Then see it. Think as if it were a thing entirely apart from yourself. So learn to see the separateness by paying attention. Really, all the practices we do, all the practices of every religion, are for teaching us to be aware, to come out of this cycle of assumption, of sleepiness that we live in, to come into this awareness of the moment and to see it clearly so that we begin to understand, isn't it interesting that all of my thoughts are told to me, that I watch them on a screen? Isn't it fascinating that my senses are always reporting to me reality? Isn't it interesting that my body is always having to inform me about myself? And by paying attention to this, becoming aware of this, don't pay attention so much to that side of the equation. Don't pay attention to the changing mind. Don't pay attention to the demanding body. Don't pay attention to the constant stream of story that's telling you about what the moment is. But come to that awareness that you are the moment, that all of this is going to diminish into a single point of light that's emanated from here. You can't turn and look at it because you are it. So it's a matter of sitting in that stillness and opening the mind as a satellite dish. Instead of an object of thinking and action, opening it to a satellite dish that picks up what? That picks up light, picks up love, becomes aware that it's seeing the reflection of a divine love that's without limit, a divine love that's painting on a screen whose sum total is light and luminous. Keep yourself separate from that. You are that witness. I had a meditation, well, I've had many meditations with this condition actually, but where I was sitting there just bored to tears and thinking, oh gosh, if I could just have one moment of this kind of realization. I'm sitting there and those meditations where you look at your watch and like literally 90 seconds has passed and you thought it was like 90 days. You're like, oh my God, I'm never getting out of here. And this kind of restlessness that overtakes us at that point. One time I was sitting there feeling that way, and I was trying to do any of these exercises that I could remember at the moment. Of that idea of the witness came to my mind, and I sat there and I thought about the witness instead of thinking about the feeling of infinity in time. I sort of thought about this witness, and I thought, this darn witness here has not been sitting here doing nothing just for the last 10 minutes trying to get a meditation. This witness has stood here for eons, maybe an eternity. That patience is my very nature, that forbearance is my very being, that I have sat here watching life after life after life, completely contented in myself, completely at peace, knowing somewhere that I need nothing from this light show of the world, that there's nothing here for me to get, there's nothing here for me to add to myself. There is nothing here that will change me. I cannot be changed. I cannot be hungry. I cannot be needy. I am this eternal witness, content in myself, to watch empires rise, survive, and fall, over and over and over again. And I realize that I do this all the time. Every day I see this cycle. I spend my day in this reality, working in this body. I'm very familiar with it now. I don't like what it's doing these days, but there it is. It's slowly melting and heading toward the ground little by little. But that's the nature of all of this, that all of this is going and coming at the same time. To know that it's not ourself and to not get caught up in that story, but to be ever free. Hold fast to the idea, I am this witness watching the mind drift. The mind is not I. The way that you do that is make sure that you don't place the I in anything that's thinking. A very funny experience I had that I've shared. I was trying to do this practice exactly. And I was watching things come, and I actually got to the point for a few split seconds where the mind was just sort of going in front of me, and I felt that distance, and I felt that disinterest, and I felt that separateness, and I realized that it was just excreting thought, that one thought was directly born of the previous thought, and that would never change. that the creativity of the mind is limited to what its previous thought was. You cannot have an original thought. You cannot create a thought that's not related to the previous thought. And I thought, well, that's not me. Obviously, that's not me. So I was watching this, and I was getting pretty good at it, I thought. Not that I was thinking that. That's what I'm about to share. I was actually managing not really to be thinking anything. I was just watching it go, and I felt a certain joy, a certain bliss. I became aware of an underlying contentment of being that I suspected is always there. But because of my distraction with mind, I couldn't see it. I couldn't feel it. I didn't live in that space. And I was very excited about that. So excited that I jumped up in my own mind and thought, I'm having a great meditation. And I saw that thought go across my mind. I'm having a great meditation. And I saw my name. I'm having. And suddenly I was thrilled by this meditation I was having, and boom. My awareness of that subtle piece was gone. I was dragged right back into it because I saw I in my thoughts, and I thought that meant this. I thought it meant me. And I was pulled right back into the mind, distracted again from that poetic stillness that is always present if you can manage to not be distracted from seeing and being in that space. Hold fast to that idea. I am the witness watching my mind drifting. The mind is not I. Then see it think as if it were a thing entirely apart from yourself. Identify yourself with God, never with matter or with the mind. Picture that mind as a calm lake stretched out before you, and the thoughts that come and go as the bubbles rising and breaking on its surface. Make no effort to control the thoughts. Now, this is highlighted in bright red here because I thought, oh, wait, I thought that's what I'm supposed to be doing, controlling my mind, right? Sitting there making it focus on the mantra or making it do any number of things. He says, make no effort to control the thoughts, but watch them and follow them in imagination as they float away. This will gradually lessen the circles in the water that's being caused by these thoughts. For the mind ranges over wide circles of thought, and those circles widen out into ever-increasing circles, as in a pond when you throw a stone into it. We want to reverse the process, and starting with a huge circle, make it narrower until at last we can fix the mind on one point and make it stay there. Holding to the idea, I am not the mind. I see that I am thinking. I am watching my mind act. And each day the identification of yourself with thought and feeling will grow less, until at last you can entirely separate yourself from the mind and actually know it to be apart from yourself. And at that time you will realize that your karma is locked in mind. And that if you can step out of mind, you step out of your karma. You begin to understand that all of the needs and hungers and desires and discontentments and frustrations that you're experiencing from moment to moment had nothing to do with you. They were a story on the screen being played. And you were watching it one image after another and identifying yourself with the pictures and with the stories and with the pains and with the happiness, until the credits rolled. But the poet, who was outside of time, who knew its separation from mind, saw only luminous light and knew the presence of an infinite love manifesting itself through every story, through every movie, on every screen, in every eye of every manifestation of its own self. As we go through this day by day in our experience of passing the day and realizing this is my body, this is who I am, we have a name and a history, and then at night you lay down and you fall asleep and you go into a dream. And we don't often think about this quite clearly enough because all of Vedanta exists right there. Every lesson you can learn from the Advaita is present in the fact that you dream. Because in this dream you take on a new body, and how easily you do it. You do it without even realizing or even thinking not a thought about it. I'm suddenly this, a butterfly, just a point of reference, who knows, all the numerous things that you can become in a dream. And sometimes you change from one thing to another. But you always attach the same I to that new body, to that new experience, effortlessly. You are the identity of all things. That's how we're one. This I that is attached to that body, that mind that you're sitting with now, is the same one that's attached to this horrendous thing up here and identified itself as such. And how easily it does that, because it is equally all things. It is equally everything at once. And how easily we do that in a dream. But even more miraculous is how easily you forgot everything about the story that's laying in bed, about the body that's sleeping. How interesting it is that now you exist in this new body and you have completely forgotten, not just your previous birth like we used to talk about. Oh, I thought I remembered my previous birth. Great, good job. Can you remember the sleeping self while you dream? That's the notion. Do you know who you are? Can you remember it in the midst of this life? That you are that I of every woman and every man, every being. That you are the I looking at you from everywhere, as well as looking out from here to everywhere. Can you know that you are that unchanging self from which everything in your current universe is measured? You are the standard for everything in this relative world. If you were not, it couldn't exist. You cannot have relativity without an absolute. Wherefrom comes that first measurement? If it comes from a part of the changing, it's meaningless, because it's measured from a changing point that's never in the same place. You are that unchanging absolute from which you measure everything in the world and give it value. Everything in this world is relative to that within you. It has no positive or negative value. It does not have two sides to its coin until it meets this, until it's reflected off of this being of intelligence, this being of presence, this being of wisdom and love. In Japan, there's this temple called the Sanjusan Jendo. Let me try that again. Sanjusan Jendo. And it's filled with 1,001 sculptures of this goddess of compassion. It was built by a father and son team. So there's 1,001 lifetime statues of this 1,000-armed goddess of compassion. The 1,000-armed cannon is said to have 11 heads to better see the suffering of mankind, and 1,000 arms to save everyone in need. So it's an externalization of this ocean, and the idea of this infinity, of this room full of 1,000 copies of the one who has thousands of arms to save everyone from the raging storm of this sea of change that's out there, that can embrace and grab every soul in need. That it has 11 heads because it's looking in all directions simultaneously. It is flooding the world with light and love, aware of everything happening, and using all of its thousands of arms to relieve suffering. And this is what you are. This is what your manifestation is. You are one of those 1,000 heads, 1,000 times 11, 11,000 heads. You are one of them. You are two of the 1,000 arms. And the point of your life here is to keep your eyes open, looking for love, recognizing love, and seeing any suffering in the light of that love, to use your two of 1,000 arms to relieve that suffering, because it's your nature to relieve suffering. And to see that suffering as your own, not as belonging to somebody that you're going to help, but understanding that it is your very self that you're helping, for no other reason than it's the inspiration of the moment. It's what you are right now. It's the culmination of the entire movie that you're watching. A light of luminous love. Rumi writes a poem called The Day of Resurrection. It goes like this. On every side is clamor and tumult. In every street are candles and torches. For tonight the teeming world gives birth to the world everlasting. You were dust and are spirit. You were ignorant and are wise. He who has led thee thus far will lead thee further also. How pleasant are the pains he makes you suffer, while he gently draws you to himself. So this wonderful idea of looking out there and seeing all of this pain and all of this pleasure, all of this happening, knowing it as the reflection of that true inner self, content and full of bliss and joy. And to be able to take those moments of pain and have them highlight the moments of pleasure. To take those moments of suffering and know that they are temporary, they pass, they float away, that nothing is permanent. Nothing goes beyond the grave, Swamiji says, but virtue, that love that is your nature. You want to take something with you, be virtuous, and that love will follow you. Vivekananda says, judge people not, they're all mad. So we just start with that. Don't hold anything against anyone around you because they're just mad. They're crazy. The whole world is in fact crazy, and you are not the only non-crazy one. You're right in there with the rest of us. They are all mad. Children, they're mad after their games. The young, after the young. The old are chewing the cud of their past lives. Some are mad after gold. Why not some after God? Go crazy over the love of God as you go crazy over Johns and Janes. Who are they? People say, shall I give this up? Shall I give up that? One asked, shall I give up this marriage? Do not give up anything. Things will give you up. Wait, and you will forget them. Right. Don't get caught into the trick of your mind thinking that there's a story that you have to do something about right now. You know, the mind, the ego, this is one of the toughest realizations for me that I've had, is that this ego wants everything to be difficult. It wants everything to be difficult, especially spiritual life. It wants you to think about your mind as this endless pit of horrors that you are never going to control. It's going to take you lifetimes away. Why? Because the ego is going to come riding in on that big shining white horse. I'll save you. You just have to meditate 2 hours a day now instead of just 1. You know, and now you have to be nice to 5 people today instead of 4 like yesterday. And the ego will come in and make you the doer of your own salvation. And you will ride that horse for quite some time until you realize that it's a hoppity horse, stationary, waiting for your mother to put another quarter in. And that you've gone nowhere. Because this is not an exercise of ego to save an ego from an ego. This is the exercise of setting down the ego to understand that there is no selfish self here. There is no hunger here. There is nothing necessary here. It's the ability to sit in this moment, in this room, and see the perfection of it. To see the luminous light of the sum total, and to not get caught and trapped by the particular. To know that every person is your mother, your brother, your father, your lover, your son, your pet, your chihuahua. Speaking of... There's another YouTube video that I saw, very, very insightful this week, where a woman goes and she has a dog that she walks all the time, very cute little dog. And she filmed people's greetings of the dog, all the different ways people greet that dog. You know, that, oh, it's so cute, he's so nice, and so very... And then she filmed how all of those people greeted her. How we love our dogs and how we despise each other. You know, we're terrified of each other. How is it that we can be so open and so expressive and so kind and so cuddly with an animal, this little dog at the end of the leash, But with the owner, we're barely able to get a look at them, like, hi, oh, good to see, oh, cute dog, and then walk away, We should work in spiritual life on flipping that, Go up and cuddle some absolute stranger, scratch them behind the ears and, stroke their hair back and say, oh, you sweet thing, you beautiful thing. How cute you are, how wonderful you are. Thank you for letting me pet you. And go on our way. To have those kinds of eyes, though, that kind of fun in this world, to see that kind of love manifested, that's where the beloved is going to take you someday, maybe today, to open your eyes to be experienced by pure love, to spread it freely without consideration of your own safety, without consideration of your own ego that's hungry and needy, but from that place of freedom, from the place of the poet, that eternal self that's looking out there enthralled with the beauty of the good and the evil, with the wonder of knowledge and ignorance. Judge people not, they're all mad. Ramakrishna says, there was an unbearable pain in my heart because I couldn't get a vision of the mother. I couldn't see that divine love. I couldn't see outside my defined moment of existence, the suffering and the pains, the hurts, the voids, the emptiness. And just as a man wrings out a towel with all his strength to get the water out of it, so I felt as if my heart and mind were being wrung out. I began to think I should never see the mother. I was dying of despair. In my agony, I said to myself, what's the use of living this life? Suddenly my eyes fell on the sword that hangs in the temple, and I decided to end my life with it, then and there. This is an amazing place for the Master to stand. He's suicidal. Every one of us who's thought about suicide has stood in this place. Every one of us who's gotten so overcome with despair and meaninglessness and thinking, God, is this really all that there is to this life? We get caught in that narrowness of story, that smallness of self, and we're brought to this despair. And he gives us an answer here. What's the use of living this life? Suddenly my eyes fell on the sword that hangs in the temple, and I decided to end my life with it then and there. And like a madman, I ran to it and I seized it. And then I had a marvelous vision of the mother, and I fell down unconscious. It was as if houses, doors, temples, and everything else just vanished altogether, as if there was nothing anywhere. And what I saw was an infinite, shoreless sea of light, a sea that was consciousness. However far and in whatever direction I looked, I saw shining waves, one after another, coming toward me. They were raging and storming upon me with great speed. Very soon they were upon me and made me sink down into unknown depths. I panted, I struggled, and I lost consciousness. When Ramakrishna later talks about this, he describes it this way. The Divine Mother revealed to me in the Kali temple that it was she who had become everything. She showed me that everything was full of consciousness. The image was consciousness. The altar was consciousness. The water vessels were consciousness. The door sill, consciousness. The marble floor, consciousness. All was consciousness. I found everything inside the room soaked as if it were in bliss, this bliss of the divine. I saw a wicked man in front of the Kali temple, but in him also I saw the power of the Divine Mother vibrating. That was why I fed a cat with the food that was to be offered to the Divine Mother. I clearly perceived that all this was the Divine Mother, even that cat. This is the life of a human being. This is what it means to be authentic. Not authentic to a set of desires, not authentic to a set of limitations and restrictions, not authentic to an ego and an idea of self, but authentic to yourself. as the very source of all the love in the universe, as the very source and reliever of suffering that you are. Brahman, he said, is the only reality. If it's the only reality, what does it say about all of this? What is the right way to see all of this? That reality is ever pure. It's ever illumined. It's ever free, beyond the limits of time and space, beyond the limits of causation. Though apparently divided by names and forms through the inscrutable power of Maya, that enchantress who makes the impossible possible, Brahman is really one and undivided. When a seeker merges in the beatitude of samadhi, he does not perceive time, space, or name and form, the offspring of Maya. Whatever is within the domain of Maya is unreal. Give it up. Destroy the prison house of name and form, and rush out with the strength of a lion. Dive deep in search of the self, and realize it through samadhi. You will find the world of name and form vanishing into void, and the puny ego dissolving into Brahman consciousness. You will realize your identity with Brahman, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. Quoting from the Upanishads, Todapuri, his teacher, said, "That knowledge is shallow, by which one sees or hears or knows another. What is shallow is worthless and can never give real felicity. But the knowledge by which one does not see another, or hear another, or know another, which is beyond duality, this knowledge is great, and through such knowledge one attains the infinite bliss. How can the mind and the senses grasp that which shines in the heart of all as this eternal subject?" I want to read the poem again that I started with in closing, and then take a moment to think about these things. Light will one day split you open, even if your life is now a cage. Little by little, you will turn into stars. Little by little, you will turn into this whole, sweet, amorous universe. Love will surely burst you wide open into that unfettered, booming new galaxy. You will become so free in a wonderful, secret, and pure love that flows from a conscious, one-pointed, infinite light. Even then, my dear, the beloved will have fulfilled just a fraction of a promise he wrote upon your heart. For a divine seed, the crown of destiny, is hidden and sown on an ancient, fertile plain that you hold the title to. Oh, look again within yourself, for I know you were once the elegant host to all the marvels in creation, when your soul begins to ever bloom and laugh and spin in an eternal ecstasy. Oh, little by little, you will turn into the divine. All right. So from this point in time, it looks like the future is going to hold a Durga Puja on October 1st in Santa Barbara. So that's next Saturday up there. We're going to start chanting the Jai Shri Durga. It starts today, Navaratri. There it is. Couldn't read it. And next Sunday, someone named Swami C quite possibly will give a lecture on helpful tidbits. So this temple is for you. I always remind you that it's your devotion and the devotion of the people that came before you that built this place, that established a monastery here, that invited people who wanted to practice love and see love to live here and to give and provide that. So come, leave your meditations in the temple for others to enjoy that history. Leave your gift at the altar here to build up the energy and the power of this sacred space. It's your place. So come and be a part of that and continue to build. Greenhouse discussion. Green, okay. Right now? Next year? Okay. So I'm going to be available, apparently, across the room in the greenhouse over across the way here for questions and answers. So please come on by to join in on that. With all of that,
there's refreshments also, coffee and soda pop and various snacks.
Wonderful. All right, there's the reason to come. Jai Ma, Jai Thakur, Jai Swamiji. May all be happy, may all be well, may all realize these truths that we enjoy.